On today's episode, we recap Toughest Mudder South, we preview Toughest Mudder West, and we get a sneak peek at World's Toughest Mudder 2019 from race director Johnny Little. This is the World's Toughest Podcast. Welcome to the World's Toughest Podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's World's Toughest Mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the World's Toughest Podcast. Welcome back to World's Toughest Podcast. My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. We're going to kind of do this one live. Usually when I start talking, if I make a mistake, I can edit and I can go back and I can make myself sound smarter than I actually am. But I would like to get this episode out to you. Today in our show, we're going to talk with Johnny Little. Johnny is a vice president at Tough Mudder. He's also a race director for Tough Mudder. He was the race director for Toughest Mudder South in Dallas. And I know it's like a month ago, but there were some hiccups to that race. And I asked him about them, and he's very forthcoming, like, hey, this is what went wrong. This is what we did to fix it. And it's very interesting to listen to. Very transparent. Appreciated that. He's also the race director for Toughest Mudder West in Vegas this weekend. So we talk about that. Will there be a cliff? Well, yes, there will be a cliff, but will we jump off the cliff? And we get a little sneak peek at World's Toughest Mudder. He's kind of cagey about it, as they always are, but that's okay. We're going to have a more traditional preview episode for Toughest Mudder West later this week. I talked with Jessica Johnson from the World's Toughest Mudder community, and we go through the obstacles, and she kind of lays them out for us. That'll come up later this week. Before we talk with Johnny Little, let's read some news. Biggest piece of news I want to talk about. This year, the Tough Mudder Community Awards are open for nomination to the community. In the past, these have been kind of handed down from Team HQ with some input from the community, but from community members. But this time it's open to everybody. Everyone has a vote, or at least a voice. The link is in the show notes if you would like to vote. And really, like, if you're a member of the community, you should vote. You should. Let me tell you, these are the categories. There are 6 categories you can nominate people for. First one, Community Award Teamwork. Please share the name and story behind a member of our community that embodies the Tough Mudder spirit of teamwork on or off the course. Second one is Community Award Fun. Who brings the party and contributes to the culture of our community? Name and description. Third award, Community Award Personal Accomplishment. Who has achieved a great personal accomplishment in 2019? Set a goal and went out and crushed it. Name and description. Next award, Mental Grit. They persevere through challenging circumstances and despite the odds, conquered every obstacle in front of them. The next to last award, the Tribe Award. And this is the kind of the second biggest award. Nominate an individual or group who embodies all of the Tough Mudder core values of teamwork, courage, and fun, and has made an outstanding contribution to the community in 2019. The 2018 winner was Assist 100 Mudders. And this is the biggest award. This is the coolest. This is the one I'm most excited about, to see who gets elected for this one or nominated for this one. The Tough Mudder Hall of Fame. To commence our 10th anniversary celebration, every year forward, we'll welcome a new class of inductees to the Tough Mudder Hall of Fame. The HOF recognition is reserved for exceptional individuals that have made a permanent and lasting mark on the Tough Mudder community. So there's 6 categories that you can nominate people for. I've already submitted my nominations. And when I did, I was going to come on the podcast and say, hey, this was fun. Here's who I voted for. Here's who I nominated. But I thought about that, and I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you after after the brunch, after World's Toughest Mudder, who I voted for. But I don't want to put my thumb on the scale. A lot of people listen to this show. A lot of people listen to the podcast, and I don't want to sway anybody. My idea of fun is probably different than your idea of fun. And my idea for someone in the tribe award Tribe Award, Tough Mudder core values of teamwork, courage, and fun. It has made an outstanding contribution to the community in 2019. That might be different than yours, but you should go. There's a link in the show notes. You can go to the World's Toughest Mudder community page and find the link. It's on the Tough Mudder Legionnaires page. You can even find it through the regular Tough Mudder site. The easiest way, just click the link in the show notes, and it'll take you to the award nomination page. If you don't know 6 members of the community, that's fine. Just nominate, in the 4 categories you can think of. Or, hey, this guy should be in the Tough Mudder Hall of Fame. Nominate that guy. That's fine. You don't have to do all 6. But it would be very good for Tough Mudder, for Tough Team HQ, to see a large outpouring from the community. Like, hey, this is a great thing. We want to be involved in these awards. The brunch after World's Toughest Mudder, if this is your first year at World's Toughest Mudder, do whatever you can to make sure you go to the brunch on Monday. The race is from 12 noon on Saturday to 12 noon on Sunday. After the race, everyone goes home, they crash, take showers, sleep it off. And then Monday morning, everyone limps into this convention center and has brunch together. And then the brunch is it's a celebration of the race, of the community, and of the winners. And I've gone every single year. It's always a highlight of the year. Whatever you can do, get to the brunch, and these awards will be issued at the brunch. It'd be great for Team HQ to know, hey, these awards are important to the community. They voted so many times. They nominate. Now, you can only vote once. You can only make one set of nominations. So don't go stuff in the ballot box for your favorite buddy. But anyway, check that out. The link is in the show notes, or you can find it online. Let's read some iTunes reviews. I tell you what, I have had this soundboard for, I don't know, a month now. I should know where the heart button is and where the applause button is and where the sad trombone is. And I should know by now where my 5-star button is.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars.
Our first review comes from Australia. From Australia, Alan McKinley writes, 5 stars. Came across this podcast after signing up for Australia's Toughest Mudder in Melbourne. Oh, I know I'm saying that wrong, Alan. And I've listened to all of the episodes over the past 4 months. Gear, obstacles, nutrition, tips and tricks, as well as hearing from the elites and community members, has been feeling a lot more confident than I probably should be for my event. Thanks, Will, and the entire TM community who provided so much advice and wisdom. A true 5-star podcast. Cheers, Alan. I don't know what it is about cities in Australia, but I have a heart. Brisbane. Here's a fun fact. A good trivia question that a lot of people get nailed on. What's the capital of Australia? It's not Melbourne or Melbourne. It's Brisbane. And you say it like there's no vowels in it. Brisbane. At least that's what I was told once. It might have changed. I'm not an expert. Hey, Alan, thank you very much for leaving a review for the podcast. I appreciate the kind words. Let me know how Toughest Mudder Australia goes for you. Our next review comes from Susie Huck. Susie Huck writes, essential listening for WTM, 5 stars. Love Champions Week. If you are preparing for WTM, this podcast is as essential as your wetsuit. Motivation and tips with every episode. Thank you, Susie. It's not as essential as your wetsuit. Like, you could make it through Atlanta without listening to the podcast. You could not make it through Atlanta last year with no wetsuit. So, very kind to say. And I think there's a lot of benefits, a lot of interviews, a lot of good information. But this podcast will not keep you warm at World's Toughest Mudder. So don't leave the wetsuit. If you had to pick the wetsuit or the podcast, you should definitely bring the wetsuit. Our last review comes from Amber Nicole. Amber Nicole writes, 5 stars. Entertaining, informative, and inspiring. Keeps my dream of running a WTM alive. Thanks for strengthening the community, Will. Thank you, Amber Nicole. You're very kind. As far as this keeps your dream of running a WTM alive, Amber, and anyone else who is listening who has never run World's Toughest Mudder, there is only one way to run World's Toughest Mudder, and that is to sign up and show up. Commit before you're ready, and then get ready. I know it's scary. It's terrifying. The first time, it is literally terrifying. Like, you might have nightmares leading up to it. I remember my first time, I'd run, I don't know, 10 or 15 regular Tough Mudders before World's Toughest Mudder. And I knew what I was doing on a regular Tough Mudder course, right? I wasn't like crushing it every weekend, but I knew how to finish a course. I could do that. And all I wanted to know is, what kind of shoes should I buy? What kind of shoe? Like, if throwing another $100 at a piece of gear will solve all my problems, and it won't. It might make you feel a little bit better, and it might lower the stress level, so maybe it's worth it. But the same shoes you wear for Tough Mudder are the same shoes you should wear at World's Toughest Mudder. I wear the Merrill Agility Peak Flex. Chris Mendoza wears a different pair of Merrills. A lot of people are in. Just get a good pair of OCR shoes. Amber, I don't know if that's your problem. That was my problem. I was super stressed out about the shoes. Maybe it's wetsuits for you. Maybe it's nutrition for somebody else. Sign up and show up. And that is how you fulfill that dream. Amber, I don't know if I'll see you in 2019, but I hope to see you in 2020. Let me know if you sign up. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like Amber Nicole, Susie Huck, and Alan McKinley, you can leave a review on iTunes also. Open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone or iOS device, search for World's Toughest Podcast, click our logo, and then scroll down to click Write a Review, and I will read it on a future episode. If you are an Android user or international, you can also go to Amazon.com, do the same thing, or Amazon.uk or Amazon.yourcountry, or go to Stitcher, leave us a review. I would appreciate it. Today on our show, Johnny Little. John is a vice president with Tough Mudder. Johnny is also a race director. He'll be one of the 2 race directors at World's Toughest Mudder. There's a daytime and a nighttime race director, because doing that for 24 hours would be crazy. Can you imagine doing a race for 24 hours? It's insane. I was very happy to talk with Johnny. I met Johnny in the airport on the way to Toughest Mudder Berlin last year. And I didn't know it was Johnny at the time. I saw him wearing a Team HQ t-shirt, and we kind of talked. And then before our conversation that you'll hear in a minute, I was like, oh, hey, was that you? Yeah, it was you. Anyway, it's time to talk with Johnny Little. Let's go to the phones. Johnny Little, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Will. Excited to be chatting with you today.
John, you are the Vice President of International Expansion for Tough Mudder. What does that mean?
That's a great question. Everything outside of the North American and our UK and German events are delivered by our licensed partners. So I am in charge of overseeing all of the events that they put on, as well as sourcing new operators in the many countries that we'd like to plant a flag and add, many mudders too, wherever we can. So,
how many countries is Tough Mudder in?
Exciting role. There's been quite a bit of expansion, over the last couple years. We've grown to 18 licensed events in 2019, and there'll be close to 40 events, 40 licensed events next year.
Does that include some
partners around the globe?
Does that include some new countries?
It does. We recently just signed a deal with South Korea, as well as Malaysia, Singapore, and we're very close to, an operator delivering an event for us in China. We've got Brazil on board for next year, as well as Egypt, a bit more of expansion into the Middle East. So yeah, we are adding Tough Mudders, literally around the globe. It's great.
That's exciting. When are those new countries rolling out? 2020?
Pretty much all 2020. Egypt will have a 5K event in December this year, but most will be delivering in 2020.
Those are exciting countries. Some of those, like South Korea, China, that's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. And it's something, that we initially had some focus on. We had launched a few events in China for 2016 and 2017. Unfortunately, typhoon season, was upon us, and we were not able to deliver those events. But definitely the Asian market is primed, for, mud races. And Spartan has done well over there, and we need to show them what Tough Mudder is all about. So I'm very excited to be bringing it into Asia.
One of your other jobs as a senior person at Tough Mudder is you are the race director for races. I met you as the race director for Toughest Mudder Berlin last year. You were the race director for Toughest Mudder Dallas. Tell me about the race. How did Dallas go?
That's right. Well, it went it went well in some parts, and certainly challenging in other parts. During the changeover from our daytime operations to nighttime, it's a short turnover. We felt we were in a good spot. Certainly, as race director, as I prep everyone, in the start chute, ready to go off, I assumed we were ready for everyone, ready for the course to receive everyone. But ultimately, on the first lap, we had some directional issues in 3 different areas that caused many of the folks to come back and tell me at the race center about anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half later how wrong they were directed. So it took a lap or two for us to get that right, but ultimately then ended up in adding more distance to each lap. So we solved the problem, at the same time created a bit more of a challenge for all of our participants in the process. So it was good and bad at the same time.
Was the initial problem, was it a volunteer direction issue, or was it a course marking issue?
Yeah, it was a course marking issue. And what we see, as the competitors are there looking to obviously do as many laps as they can in the 12-hour time period, is, most of the time it's head down, or you're just looking just enough ahead of you, but, within your own mind, doing your own thing. So if someone in front of you just happens to take a wrong turn and misses a directional arrow, the one behind them is very likely to follow. Before you know it, we've got a whole line of people going off in one direction. And that happened at a few different spots, and our marking should have been a little bit better to keep people corralled into the course they needed to go. So that's ultimately what took place. And took us, like I said, about a lap or two to really, hammer that out and then get everyone onto the same track.
And then to correct that mismarking, it ended up making the laps, each lap about 5.5 miles long. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just over 5.5 miles. I was checking in with a few people that had, the GPS watches, as I was pretty much had to be stationed at the race center most of the night. And they were coming in anywhere, depending on if they were taking penalties or not, between 5.51 and 5.6 something. The folks that, I knew were doing all the obstacles and not taking any penalties. So, yeah, definitely turned into the true Mudder mile, Mudder, distance miles of 5+ for sure per lap.
So when the racers like Trevor Psychos that are not failing obstacles, when they came back, they were saying, "Hey guys, there's something wrong with the laps are taking too long. We need to fix this."
Exactly. Yeah, and he was one of the folks. Him and Elliot, I was grabbing their wrists as they would be running through to see where each of their laps were, just so that I knew that our course marking then was in place after that second and third lap.
Was there any way to kind of fix it on the fly and make it another 5-mile loop, or is that not an option?
Yeah, being that we're working in the dark, it's pretty challenging. And the crew that we have, only see the course for a few hours in the daytime as we're building, making those changes on Saturday afternoon. So it's pretty challenging to really, try to hammer that out. And unfortunately, the distance, in order to correct it, just added the distance, and we just accepted it for what it was.
I think ultimately it's the same distance for everyone, even if it's not the exact 5 miles you want. So it's
exactly outside of that first lap, which some people were coming in 3.5 miles, some coming in over 5. Outside of that, we wanted to make sure everyone was doing the same course and get it as close back to a fair ball game as we could.
One thing that distance can affect is contender status. Each, men, women, and teams need different mileage requirements to get to contender status for World's Toughest Mudder. How did that end up shaking out?
Yeah, so after the race, and speaking with the senior leadership team here, we decided, let's reduce down, our standards that we didn't apply for, for Twin Cities and for our Philadelphia event, and brought that down by 5 miles or by 1 lap, so that the folks, that seriously, were gunning for their contender status here to set themselves up for Worlds, would still have that, that opportunity to be a contender and receive those benefits. So it was something that we looked at, immediately after the race and said, let's put that change in practice.
I heard a little.
And that was for only Dallas. That won't be the same for Vegas. And as I am the race director there, I will spend a bit more time prior to the event on Saturday, making sure our course marking is in line and that it is a true 5 miles.
I heard a little discussion afterwards that people were disappointed that they didn't know that the decision to lower it by 1 mile came after the fact, and so there wasn't an announcement on the course.
Yeah, it was something, we wanted to involve a bit more of our folks back here at the headquarters, making sure, we really want to weigh all of the options. And if we stuck true to the contender status and just said, no, it's by lap mileage, not by, total mileage. And, needed a few more people to weigh in. And, early on a Sunday morning, as much as I'd love to volunteer Kyle whenever I can, don't really want to call him overnight on a early Sunday morning if I don't have to.
Okay, let me ask you about one specific obstacle that it had something I've never seen happen. Block Ness Monster. There was a problem with it, and so it ended up being locked in the kind of halfway place with the point up at the top. What happened? Tell me the story about Block Ness Monster at Toughest South.
Yeah, certainly. So it was identified by our build partners on Wednesday of that week that the excavated pit started to collapse. So we excavate the pits, we put a liner in, then fill it with water, set the blocks and all of that. Unfortunately, the ground started to move and pinched against both of the blocks. So there was no way for the blocks to turn. So we could have either shut down the obstacle, which we hate to do, but we realized you could still, utilize the obstacle. You wouldn't get that same rotating experience when the blocks, are freely rotating, but we'd still, be able to send mothers through, get them to climb up and over, and certain people, I'm sure, would stop and help others, the shorter folks who couldn't make that leap to the top of the block and haul themselves up and over. So it was, really the ground conditions that unfortunately eroded and caused the blocks not to spin.
So it wasn't that it was getting too deep underneath it. It was that just the blocks physically could not rotate because of the ground eroding.
That's right. Yeah, one of the sidewalls just collapsed and just held it in place. So if we got it to spin, it would have ripped the liner, and then it would have caused the obstacle to certainly close. So this was the best option that we could do, with the circumstance in hand.
You know what? It didn't look like it was ideal, but it was definitely a new wrinkle to it. It made it a little harder. So, toughen up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so the next Toughest Mudder race is coming up in Vegas. You said you're going to be the race director for that. What can people look forward to in Vegas?
Let's see. It's Vegas. It is the incredible terrain and course that we all know and love from previous world Toughest Mudders. Unfortunately, I don't believe the cliff is making it back. So that's a shame for us, but that doesn't mean that there aren't many other surprises that we have in store, for those looking to take on the challenge. So there'll be certainly some updated penalties, as that's a bit of a precursor into what we're planning for World's Toughest this year, really elevating that option for people to really focus on, obstacle completion versus taking a penalty that really might cause you quite a bit of time and or stress. So there'll be a few more tests there to see what it is we fully plan to roll out in World's Toughest. So excited for certainly the terrain, the epic swings in the weather and temperature, and all the things that we can throw at you guys, through penalties and different obstacle updates.
Okay, talking about obstacle completion and penalties, there's a huge discussion, like literally hundreds and hundreds of comments on the World's Toughest Mudder community page about Everest, and I'm sure you've seen this, whether Everest should be a penalty obstacle or whether it should be a must-complete obstacle. And the people came on both sides of it. Ultimately, Kyle came in and he said, it's going to be a penalty obstacle in Vegas, but we're going to make the penalty terrible. What does that mean?
I hope it makes those folks that were very upset that it's a must complete change their tone and wish that it was a must complete again. I don't want to give away too much, but I am excited to see the people make their choice when they come to Everest in Lake Las Vegas.
I don't want to give you guys any ideas, but one part of the regular Tough Mudder Vegas course that has never been utilized at World's Toughest Mudder is that back hill kind of behind everything. Do you know what I'm talking about? You go up that giant hill and then across the kind of berm or the concrete bridge up there. Has there ever been any thought about incorporating that in the toughest?
There's the issue I'm sure you've seen the infrastructure and everything being put in by the land developer there. So we are getting a bit more restrictive on where we can go, and that's been a problem in the past. That there's a sliver of land that we can't cross. It's not part of the venue, and we're even a bit more restricted this year. But there's the elevation gain for our overnight event will be something that people wish was maybe back to a Twin Cities or back to a Dallas where it wasn't too bad per loop. It's going to be a rough one.
You mentioned that it doesn't look like the cliff will be returning to toughest. Is that because we want to keep the cliff or the stacks experience for World's Toughest, or is it more of a logistical issue?
It's a bit of both. Ultimately, it's a costly obstacle to operate from a safety standpoint. And at our World's Toughest, there's a bit more, quite a few more participants, that help, balance those costs. But at the same time, wanting to preserve those very unique things for the World's Toughest experience. So a bit of both.
Some guys, I think they jokingly said that if they won't make the cliff, we'll make our own cliff. I don't think that's a good idea, though.
Absolutely not. That is not a good idea.
So after Vegas, obviously the biggest event of the year, World's Toughest Mudder, you will be one of the race directors for World's Toughest. Can you give us a sneak preview of something to expect for World's Toughest this year?
Ooh. We keep most things, close to heart. And, so I can't give away too awful much, but I did mention something around, penalties and the gamification side for this year's edition of World's Toughest will be something that no one has seen before. And we're very excited, to roll out and really, test each participant, mentally and physically to see, what they can really push themselves to do, across the 24 hours. The mental side of, some of the penalties will be certainly challenging and exciting to see, what takes place.
I loved the addition of Electric Avenue. I know it's not the official name, whatever we call it officially, but I loved the
I think
option.
I think you got it. That was the official name, Electric Avenue.
If you're giving away golden carabiners or wristbands again, I'd love to pull those off of what's it called, Operation, and earn my golden carabiner. It's a lot easier for me to do that than the that super hard Funky Monkey you guys had last year. Oof.
We've got a whole slew of things where folks can earn. I don't know if there'll be a golden carabiner because I think quite a few folks have maybe saved them up or maybe purchased some of their own. So we will definitely make a different token for each participant to earn and then use for the event. But yes, we will have many different options, to earn those, throughout the event. Not only at obstacles, certain different functions in the base area and out on course outside of the actual obstacle completion will be options for it as well.
Kyle told me about the kind of making the World's Toughest an event for the whole Tough Mudder community, not just for the runners and the pit crew, but for people who are curious about Tough Mudder, and maybe they're like, I'm not going to be there for 24 hours, but I want to know what it's all about. Do you know anything about that? Kind of the weekend events?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that we're offering this year is the option to spectate and camp, on site, not within the pit area, but different campsite locations, for people that just want to partake, in the festivities across the weekend, as well as offering the hot lap on Friday afternoon, early Friday night. So it'll be an opportunity for, anyone to take one lap of the world's toughest course, so they can experience what, if they are a pit crew member, what their loved one will be doing for 24 hours, experience the different obstacles that are offered at World's Toughest, and really just get a taste for it. So that'll be done on Friday afternoon, and we've currently, I want to say, have 300 or 400 tickets already, taken for that. So really excited to see that people, are gravitating towards that, and wanting that experience. Hopefully they come back, the following year and sign up for the 24-hour event.
I think that's a great idea and here's why. Before I ran World's Toughest Mudder, I had run several Tough Mudders, and I thought, it's a 24-hour long Tough Mudder. But it's not. World's Toughest Mudder is a very, very hard Tough Mudder for 24 hours. It's twice the number of obstacles. It's harder obstacles. It's, anyway, I think it's a great idea to let people have a taste of that that aren't going to do the full thing, but they want to know what it's about.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the participants, for the 24-hour could use it as a tactical advantage to get out, to see the course, to see what's going to be out there, and start to strategize on, how they then would plan out their 24-hour event. We are also thinking the same, and, we'll make sure we're not giving away all of the secrets on Friday afternoon, all of the gamification sides of it. So, yes, I think you can get quite a bit of benefit out of it if I was, racing to get as many miles as I could over the course of the event. But we will hold certain things until Saturday and overnight on Sunday for everyone to experience.
I got to tell you what, though, Johnny, I only have so many miles in my legs, and I don't know if I want to spend 5 of them on Friday.
That's true. So it's it all depends on what you're looking to get out of it. So, the folks that are gunning for the win or going for the 100 miles and want to make sure they are able to have that obstacle completion rate as high as possible might want to get out there and test some of the updates that we're going to have. Versus giving it to us the first time, maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Saturday. So it'll be, interesting, to see what people do on Friday. I'm excited to watch it from that perspective and hopefully maybe even be able to gain some knowledge that then we can, institute for the event, come Saturday at noontime.
This is also the first year that Team HQ has kind of worked together with the World's Toughest community for the pre-race meal, pre-race briefing. I'm not even sure exactly what shape is going to take yet. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard a bit about it. I can't say I know too much in detail, but it is being community-led to where we, Team HQ has been invited to and will deliver, some of the race update or course updates and some world-specific things, to that dinner. The exact details, I'm not really sure, but I know it is being fully led, and I believe it's been in the latest race direction blog email that has gone out.
Well, Johnny, any last thoughts about Toughest South or Toughest West in Vegas, World's Toughest Mudder?
I would say the folks that enjoyed the warmth overnight in Dallas do not expect that in the desert of Vegas. And I personally hope that it is not the same weather conditions that we experienced last year in Atlanta. I was underprepared for the overnight duties that I had, and I froze and, felt bad for all the participants, but I was feeling bad for myself as well. So I hope everyone is well prepared, for what the weather will offer at these next couple of events.
What's the thought on that? Have you guys talked about, hey, what if Worlds is freezing cold again? What do we do? Is there a plan ready?
Yes, we have a bit more operational and safety measures in place if we experience the similar weather patterns that we did last year. But fingers crossed, knock on wood, it is not going to be as cold as it was last year.
Johnny Little, Vice President of Tough Mudder. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Will. We'll talk soon.
Special thanks to Johnny Little for appearing in this episode. Well done, Johnny. I will look forward to seeing you in Vegas this weekend. How about you? Will you be at Toughest Mudder West in Las Vegas? If this is your first Toughest Mudder, or maybe you're kind of new to this whole thing, World's Toughest Mudder was held at this location for 4 years. So there's a lot of sentimentality on the part of a lot of people running this weekend. But if you've never been, don't worry about it. It'll still be awesome for you. It'll be 12 hours of the suck. Be sure to check out our other podcasts on the OCR Report Network, Obstacle Running Adventures and Overcome and Run, and the OCR Report. I'm very excited about the OCR Report podcast. We're talking about championship season in the sport of obstacle course racing right now. And we've got actually something very kind of unique coming up next week after. Very excited about it. Check that out over on the OCR Report podcast. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to leave nominations for the Tough Mudder community. Link is in the show notes, or look at the World's Toughest Mudder community page. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.